Welcome, Brianna. We're back with another season of Association Amplified podcast.
We are so back and more purple than ever before.
That's right. We recently rebranded from Worker Bee TV to TaleWind Digital. It's a new year, new us.
New association, landscape, new everything.
Absolutely. And we're here to talk about digital engagement as it applies to the association space. And, you know, my goal for this chat is to get people to have that aha moment in terms of what's really going to move the needle. I find that most associations in our work, they fall into two camps. It's like there's those that are ultimately disappointed on some level with the digital engagement that they're having. And that's stemming from seeing like a decline in how people are engaging. We can kind of get into the different modalities of what engagement online looks like for an association. But there's also the second camp that aren't necessarily in a really bad place with where their digital engagement is, but you're never quite satisfied, right? Like you want to be growing your association's engagement. You want to be growing membership. Even if your organization isn't very bullish on being bigger and bigger every year, you sure care about, people getting value out of membership. So I really think about it from the being in one of those two camps.
Yeah, most associations now don't have any illusions about like, we're going to go so viral, we're going to own the internet. I think that we, though, can comfortably set our sights on being the voice of authority in our industry and having our members regularly interact with our content. That's the bar.
Yeah, I mean, when we think about what it means to have people engage with your association in 2026, like what are we really talking about? You land in a place where to do that at scale means, sorry if we strip this down so basic, but it just means that you're interacting, you're providing value or interacting directly with your members online. That is the way to scale. You can't be with your members 24/7, right? Your annual event, while extremely important and sure takes up a lot of time and resources, it's a finite amount of time. And we've seen the decline of publications. That was a big cash cow for a good while for associations. And, people generally enjoyed getting something in the mail, but like we're seeing less and less people actually wanting to sign up for the physical copy of the magazine, and those that in some sort of nostalgic way hang on to the magazine. It's, if we're really being honest, like how many of those magazines are being read, and it's really like this nostalgic few are hanging on.
They're just trying to get that magazine smell, like when you get a new magazine in the mail, you're like,
Hey, I have a magazine subscription. I have one that I keep on to, but if I'm being totally transparent, I really flip through them.
You're just helping them.
I'm just hanging on to it still, yeah. So I could have like something pretty on my coffee table rather. Yeah, so I mean, here's the face of it is that engaging with your members at scale really means is that you're engaging with them online. Mm-hmm. So like, what are the requirements in which people are actually going to be wanting to engage with you? Like I've said it a million times before here on this podcast, and I'll establish it another time, is that you really have to think about value. Right? It's like, what are the types of things that are valuable to a member? Start there, because if you start with engagement, you're going to twist yourself in knots.
So your association members are trying to extract value from you year round. You have like probably one, maybe two events, and then maybe a couple chapter events or little networking opportunities. And it's just very few and far between. So to be honest, the way that you're going to be, like you said, delivering value to your members on a more regular basis is going to be online, and it's probably going to be, the vehicle for that is going to be content. Even if it leads to like interactions between members kind of later down the line, like in like chats and follow-ups, kind of the core modality for delivering that value on a regular basis is oriented around content. And I know like it's easy for us to say that because we're the content guys, but I just feel like that's what it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, if we're thinking about what engagement online looks like, it's consumption, right? And how do people consume information? That's content. It's not telekinesis. We're not there yet. Maybe 10 years later with AI, it'll deliver us
They'll
some
beam value into our
telepathic.
brains.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, just simple level, like if it's an academic journal, or if it's peer sharing through, some sort of recorded video, ultimately we're talking about content. And this is something I actually want to get out there is that, there's this dichotomy of how important it is for associations to be that authoritative source because they're representing any given industry, right? So governance plays a big part, and you need to be presenting yourself there as a professional as possible, especially when you're out there advocating for your industry. But it's funny in terms of seeing a meaningful shift in digital engagements. That space, like mental space that associations occupy with almost a bureaucratic presentation, especially online, is honestly, I think that one of the largest things to overcome in terms of improving performance. Because how does that translate to? Well, let's just talk about the association website. It's actually not optimized to engage with people.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different kind of approaches that I see in associations that are less evolved when it comes to the UX as it relates to digital engagement. So one is something that our producer Jen coined, which is called the Blockbuster bargain bin methodology. So that's where, associations make a ton of valuable content, right? And they just like put it into like one kind of like repository or seer bank. So sometimes you'll see like it's a page maybe, and it just has like a billion embed codes in like no particular order, right? And it's like, it's all in there, have at it, like go extract it. Right. And that's putting a lot on the member to like kind of go mining for gold to like kind of extract their own value. And it's hard for something like if the member is interacting with your content on their free time, which is the unfortunate truth, is that not everybody is able in their regular day-to-day job to interact with your content. It's going to be really tough for that user experience to compete with what's being offered by like the private and entertainment sector, where content is like curated and like served to them and personalized, versus like I'm on my desktop computer and like looking through a sea of thumbnails and be like, does any of this seem like relevant to me? Maybe I can like get some value out of there. It just doesn't cut through the clutter. Okay, so there's the Blockbuster methodology. Then there's this other methodology that I akin to like 2012 internet, I guess. And I think that this kind of leans into the authority aspect that you were gesturing to earlier, is where, okay, we have the content. It's not in a big old bargain bin, but it's very like segmented out by the thing that we think it's relevant to. So we have our news updates. Well, that's in the news page. Like, look at us in the news. And then we have like a couple of videos here about like times we had news. And then it's like, okay, where's our publication, or like resources? Okay, here's a publication. Oh, did you know we have this other journal? And it's like kind of like a treasure hunt, like across disparate aspects
Absolutely.
of the website to like, oh, okay. Oh, I didn't know we have videos. Oh, we have videos in several different sections. And it's kind of like adding needless segmentation to what is all member value content.
Yeah, like that desire to signal authority while coming from a good place of, well-meaningful governance and wanting to be as professional as possible in terms of representing your industry. So much weight has, rightfully so, put into that, is that there actually hasn't been enough thought into thinking about where have we actually landed in terms of how the website is presenting to people that are to engage with it, as obvious as that sounds, right? It's like we've biased the website to be as so official, and really what it weights towards is people that actually aren't members. It's actually weighted towards, people that we need to interface with outside of the association, or those that don't not know, right? So the association website is often posturing what the association is and why it's important and what it does, where it's not actually weighing heavily enough in terms of here's what you can get out of us, right? And the way that manifests itself is like you're describing. It's like you go to the website, and I guarantee that there's any average association that you go to, there's a ton of valuable work that's being done by all the staff, right? There's probably at least one publication, if not several. There's a journal, there's webinars, there's some sort of video content, there's probably several different types of articles that are being published. And because of that, stance that the associations have, it's all filed away, and it doesn't resemble anything like an actual destination for the consumption of content, because the publications are in a different microsite. Maybe each publication has its own microsite. We can't have the videos, video content living with the article content. That doesn't make sense, almost from this like mindset of how do we organize our information in the most, I don't know where this really comes from, but it doesn't actually resemble how people interact with content out in the real world. But in the association space, we love to segment out all the content into its own. I call it like the dusty filing cabinet syndrome, is that's like what the website kind of turns into.
Hi guys, producer Jen coming to you from my little corner of the studio. If you're listening to Marcus and wondering, does my association website look like a dusty filing cabinet? Well, I've got good news. We can help you find out. The TaleWind Digital Member Value Scorecard looks at your content, digital experience, and revenue potential, and walks you through how to strengthen all three. All you have to do is go to talewinddigital.com/audit, put in your website, and we'll get back to you. It's free and doesn't take a whole lot of time.
So like to take a step back is that like the aha moment here, I would love people to think about for 2026 is that the association in 2026 needs to be, as much as it is about governance and mission and advocating for your industry, as they are, a media publisher. Because if to engage with members at scale is to be engaging with them digitally online, that means you need to be meeting people's expectations and not having them jump through hoops to find your value online. Membership lives at the website. Make the website just as obvious and easy to use to find all those things that you're currently doing. And if it's not bluntly obvious, like take a family member, show them your association's website and tell them to find something. That should give you a clear signal of where you are in that journey.
And not even find something like, find some value. It's almost like they would have to know about some of the things before they're looking for it. Like, you'd have to brief them ahead of time. Like, by the way, there's a publication, try to find it. By the way, there's a newsletter. By the way, there's a blog, try to find it. Whereas they should be confronted, I guess, with this content rather than, we spend a lot of time, and I guess this is how I'll illustrate this. We spend a lot of time making concierge videos that are like, welcome to association. Just so you know, like we have this, we have this, we have this, we have this, we have this. Have you considered interacting with this? This is where you can find like all of these places. And that's a really great tool, but it's kind of a Band-Aid solution for an ecosystem that's underperforming, right? Like it's still good to have like a welcome video and like a key highlights. But if you need to do a whole bunch of homework to find value on the website, like that's not the ideal end goal, right? Like that's journey to the end goal.
Yeah, I mean, we look at those that are successful online. Like, I think that the real thing to grasp with is that like associations, because they're asking for people to engage with them online, that actually really forces you to think, well, we actually need to accept the fact that we need to be as aggressive about getting good about how we interface with people online as, say, like your social media platforms, for instance, or a publication website or news outlet, right? Like you need to be that good, because look, everyone's obsessing about how to remove friction, because they know any point of friction is a point where someone's going to drop out and they're not going to consume something. And what we're really chasing is for our members to consume what we're producing. I mean, why are we putting so much work into creating all these assets that are supposed to be providing value, but then we bury them in what feels like a very like bureaucratic website, right?
And then usually the response when they get low interaction is like, oh, I guess the members didn't want the thing that we made because very low uptake, right? But it's usually just because of the barriers they've had to navigate through to access that content, or they never knew that it existed in the first place, right?
Absolutely. So like when you have different content living in different places, that's like the total opposite experience is that you experience anywhere else on the internet. So like associations need to get over kind of thinking about, well, how do we organize our content? That's kind of the place I think where maybe it'll start to click, is that how do people find and engage content? So the recommendation here flat out is like, do not remove all those silos, and you need a system that you can have your articles, your events, your video content, your publications, all of that value-driven content that you're producing, it should be all living in one place. Because now, where do you begin with the benefits of that, right? Well, if for any point of any piece that goes out and someone clicks on it and actually engages with it, now they're one step closer to knowing about all the other types of things that you're doing. Like how, I can't say how many times I've talked to an association executive where they're like, even someone in my own building doesn't know that we have a podcast, right? Or our members don't even know that we have this publication, right? Only this segment of member knows that we have this publication. And it's like, well, yeah, because they have to really work to try and find it. When you start to think about yourself as a media publisher and not segmenting content by type, then you really get the benefits of having all these different formats that you're producing benefit from each other. Like that cross-pollination, it allows people and you to really curate based off of interest, not format. Because like people don't care about necessarily if it's in a video or if it's an article. Like they care about the information that's top of mind to them.
Yeah, I've never gone to a website and being like, if it's not an article, like I'm not looking at it, you know, or like I'm specifically looking for a video to look at. It's usually just I'm looking for information, and then it's like, oh, would you like that in a podcast? Would you like that in a video? Would you like that in an article?
I mean, it's actually a fair point where my position is actually that associations need to be embracing the mindset of like, how do we make ourselves binge-worthy? Like that's actually closer to the solution, opposed to worrying so much about like, oh, we can't have the publications mixed in with the videos. That's blasphemy. But you actually find like some folks are very protectionist about, you know, where things are filed away on the website. And that has so little to do with what the member. And that's a huge obstacle, because the place where the whole team needs to be occupying is like, how do we make ourselves as binge worthy as possible? Because the KPI for engagement is content consumption. If we're talking about digital engagement, I mean, everyone in the association space loves to talk about data, right? And millions of dollars are spent on data. What better KPI? Give me another KPI that's better, that's more meaningful than content consumption. If content consumption go up, engagement go up. If engagement go up, are we doing a good job? Are we providing value to people? Certainly. So why would you not be trying to optimize your experience to be as binge-worthy as possible, right? We're not talking about silly content out on the internet. Like, by definition of being an association, we're creating content that's meant to be actually an asset to people and help them in some sort of way.
That's true. It's not like it's brain rot. The binging of association content can only be a net positive to the member and to the association.
Yeah, if someone has 2 hours to burn and they spent it on your website binging a bunch of really informative stuff about their given profession or industry or whatnot, or heck, they got into a course that you maybe made last year because they read an article about what's new in, polymers or material sciences, whatever the given topic is. That's fantastic. That's a win for the association. But you actually don't see that journey, as we like to call it, if we're segmenting out because we're too worried about, well, hey, our department handles this. That's our territory. It has our own part of the website. That team worries about that. It goes over there on that part of the website. I really challenge association leaders to think about, like, how do we rally people together and together think of ourselves as really a media publisher and create those binge-worthy experiences. And like, chances are there's a bunch of great work that you guys are already doing, and you're, like I said off the top of this discussion, it's like you really wish it was performing better. The big thing to think about is that it could be the content, but it's almost for certain the publishing, because we know the association space is lagging behind in terms of how they think they're publishing online.
Yeah. Can we kind of unpack what the kinds of things that they might be worried about if it's all in one library and emulating something that's closer to like the consumer experience? I do think that a lot, like you said earlier, that it is hinging on authority. Like, say this publication comes from like a slightly more reputable source than their newsletter or their blog. They're like, that's casual content. They need to know that this blog isn't the same level of credibility as this peer-reviewed publication. And they need to know that this is a sponsored video, and that's not the same as like things that we're actually publishing. And maybe that was a concern in early internet, but it's very easy to tag these things now, or just have like a little bumper that's like, just so you know, this is sponsored content. And I think that consumer attitudes toward this kind of mix of content has really changed, like, over the last 10 years. Like, people are used to navigating in spaces where like, oh, sometimes it's sponsored content. Sometimes like this is from like the Wall Street Journal, and sometimes it's a guy pontificating. And we've developed the expectation and the media literacy to like look in the appropriate areas.
Yeah.
And to make that determination of like, okay, like who is talking, like who is this coming from, like what's the level of authority on this post? What kind of weight should I put behind this content? I think it's a more dated concern, frankly, and it's not something we have to worry as much about anymore.
I think because the association space, frankly, is so far behind in terms of thinking about what modern publication looks like digital publication looks like. When you don't see a good example of it, it's hard to envision maybe even what we're describing here, because there's this like mental segmentation between like our personal consumer lives and association life, because the association world is just like its own kind of thing. But I guess that's in some way that I feel like the message I'd love people to be receptive to is like break down that wall. And remember, like what I'm saying is that wall exists out of good faith, right? It's out of wanting good governance, right? It's over needing to be an authoritative, respected source because you're out there advocating for your industry. And you can have your cake and eat it too, right? There are great examples out there of associations that are giving a great experience online for curating their content for their members. And they've done that by consolidating their content and not having it be this defiling cabinet. But if you haven't seen that in action and it isn't so widespread, I can see, depending on where you're coming from off the back of, the digital transformation journey of yesteryear, what that really looks like in action. Because again, governance is a big part of it. How do we create an experience where, say, academic papers are living in and around something that's more of member opinion pieces, things like this, right? And honestly, it's like the funny part is that this has been done over and over and over again, and we actually experience it out when you go to websites that deal in different types of media that have opinion and academics. It's actually nothing new, and it's really easy to achieve, right? If you simply have a good system in your website to be able to, this is the experience you want to build, right? Is that you have all your sources of content all living in one place. And it's really obvious where you are and what you're looking at, but you're the homepage of your destination and both any page of content is going to recommend you the mix. That's the secret sauce, really, right? It's like, I need to know exactly where I am if I'm navigating through and trying to find an academic paper. I know where I am. But it's that interface that allows me to see the full scope of what's happening cross-medium, right? By topic, by series, right? Now that I'm looking at the upcoming event, I could also see, oh, there's a podcast, right? Because it's all built into the navigation. And if I click through to a specific piece of content, I'm going to get related content regardless of the format. That's kind of what it means to break down those silos.
Yeah, as long as your organization is committed to the appropriate data hygiene to properly label and categorize and tag the content, you won't run into problems with someone being like, is this user-generated content or is this an official publication? So it's just, if that's something that you as an organization are committed to protecting, then you'll be able to achieve it easily. Easily in terms of the workflow. I mean, of course, there'll be time put into doing those things, but
we haven't even touched on what this means in terms of you being able to generate and leverage your website to generate revenue, right? And, the classic play is, hey, we need some money, let's slap a logo on it. And when that gets applied to digital, like we see folks struggle. But when you actually, like a good, well-curated event, like an annual conference, sponsorship is an integral part of that. If you actually treat your website like a meaningful destination, think of it almost as an event, right? It's an experience that people have, and you get that engagement, that becomes a meaningful lever to be able to generate non-dues revenue. And the folks that we work with that are able to execute on being able to consolidate that content, it opens up massive opportunities for a whole new revenue stream in a time where it's kind of never been more important to generate revenue.
Okay, so imagine if you threw an event and it was sponsored by a pizza company, and they paid money to put a banner on the stage, and then you threw the event and nobody came. And that's kind of the situation that sometimes you're finding yourself in with when you're trying to monetize your website and it's not a real destination. It only has value as long as people are there, and people are only going to be there as long as you keep them there with these content pathways that we've been talking about. And what you're sometimes saying to a sponsor when you're asking them to put their logo on a video in a website that isn't a destination is like, look at my sea of thumbnails. Would you like to be one of those little thumbnails in this sea of content that doesn't mean anything? As opposed to consider what it would be like if you had a more, and I hate to say it, Netflixed user experience, and they were promoted like, oh, on our show, which is an actual thing, which gets like an appropriate billing and like a nice thumbnail and like a beautiful presentation, and it looks like this is an asset that's worth having and something that the association puts like money and effort into, right? Like use all of our UX effort into showcasing versus like, would you like to be in a video that's like in this kind of content sea?
Yeah, I mean, it's the difference between a sponsor actually having a meaningful impact to the betterment of the association and being welcome in to participate, opposed to, being left to wait on the outside, but they get to like put their logo on the side of the building, and you're hanging out front. And again, I think it's one of those things where those associations that haven't been able to have a meaningful program for having sponsors be able to contribute to content that is actually of interest to members, it's hard to visualize that, because those that haven't experienced it like worry about this, selling out or having sponsors turn content into sales pitches. And, this goes back to good governance, is like, if what you're quote unquote selling, the opportunity for sponsors is them to contribute from a place of competency, then that's for topics that are important to members. Both the sponsor is going to appreciate that because it's content marketing, the most sought after opportunity in marketing, and the association gets free content out of it, more or less, because they're contributing intellectually to that work. And the member gets to keep up with a given topic that is frankly important to them.
Yeah, that's a night and day sales pitch, to be like, we regularly produce the finest industry content that is to be found on the internet. Sponsor, would you like to be a part of that?
You nailed it, right? If you're seen as the premium source for content, for information in your industry, you better believe sponsors are going to want to be there. Well, I think that's all that we have time for today. First podcast of the year. Looking forward to doing a whole lot more of this with you, Brianna.
Yeah, we have a ton of great content planned, so just one of many.
Yeah, we're going to be doing the podcast every month. We also have a virtual event that you can be taking a look for. You can check it out on our website at TaleWindDigital.com.